I just knew that I had to get out of there. And my mentor, Yolanda, she gave me a book by Ben Carson called Think Big. And I read Ben Carson's book, and I'm thinking, wow, he's a neurosurgeon? But his life, like his mom was 13 years old and she couldn't read, and I was flabbergasted by his life, and I'm thinking, if he can do it, I can do it. If that man can go through all that hardship and dysfunction, I can do it too. I've been through more.
All right, Tia. Tia, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Well, I was actually born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we didn't stay there long. It's pretty much we've lived on the entire East Coast, from Philadelphia to Norfolk, Virginia, to Jacksonville, Florida.
Tell me about your family.
Oh, God. This is a question I've dreaded for so long. I don't even know where to start. Like, last night I was pacing the floor, looking in the mirror, like, how do I describe my family? So I am the baby girl. Me and my siblings were all 8 years apart. I have 2 older brothers. My brother that's 16 years older than me, he's been incarcerated a lot throughout my life. Even though I admired him so much and I really felt like he was a father type. I loved my brother. But he's been in and out of prison because of a lot of choices that he made due to childhood trauma. I have another brother who is exactly 8 years older than me, but he passed away when I was in high school. He had HIV, AIDS-related pneumonia, and he was also, they're both my half-siblings, but he was also someone who sexually abused me for over a decade of my life.
Really, at a young age?
At a young age, like I would say starting at 5 or 6. And then it was his father who molested me when I was 3. Like some kids, their first memory as a child is like baking cookies with grandmom, or, waking up, catching their parents putting like Christmas toys under the tree. No, like unfortunately, my first memory is, being given a bath by my brother's dad and then afterwards molesting me at 3. So it's been definitely pretty difficult. Papa was a Rolling Stone. He was a Korean War vet. Gotta love my vets. They go through a lot in their life, and sometimes they self-medicate either with the bottle or, other vices. And for my dad, he was just trying to find a way to escape. So, yeah, my family is pretty complicated with everything, with my brothers and my dad and my mom.
That's a rough childhood.
Yes. My mom, she's legally blind. Like when I tell people my story, like even before I start talking, like fully, they're just like, oh my God, don't tell me no more. This is horrible. But, my mom's legally blind, and she has a rare eye condition that she's had since a child. So I've always been my mom's mom. I've always been my mom's caretaker, whether that's like being 7 and 8 years old, reading her mail that she receives, filling out school papers, helping with cooking dinner. Like I've always been a caregiver. And my mom suffered a lot of trauma herself because she was raped by her father at 10 years old. And, unfortunately, my grandmom didn't do anything about it. It was ongoing. So, my mom carries a lot of that trauma, not making the best choices with men and putting men before your kids, that causes this trauma. So when you say, tell me about your family, Mark, I'm like, where does the dysfunction start?
Probably 20 generations before you.
And it's bad because, like, when my dad and my mom, we moved from Philadelphia. I was 6 years old. I remember that day because I was a little black girl who had all those little hair beads. And I remember my bin dropping, and I'm like, no, my hair beads. But, I was 6, 7 years old. We were moving. I've never been outside of Philadelphia, and it was scary at first because I'm thinking, where are we going? I don't have any family. It's like adults don't talk to kids about what's happening in their life because they have a lot of questions, but they don't fully know how to comprehend it or make sense of it. So that happened to me. And I remember moving down to Norfolk, Virginia, and my dad wasn't living with us. And that was kind of strange for me because then my mom, she started dating people. Like my mom never sat down and said, listen, your dad and I, it's not going to work out. So I'm going to start seeing other people. Your dad's going to move out the house. Like, no, there was none of that. So it was kind of a questioned moment for me. And then my oldest brother wasn't there anymore. So it was just me, the brother that was abusing me, and my mom. And I thought that it would stop when we moved to Virginia, but it didn't. And I could remember, laying in bed thinking, this is my life. Not knowing, like I didn't know that it was wrong, but something inside of me said nobody should do this to you. Like it feels dirty. And, I remember my mom getting a boyfriend, and I was thinking, okay, like she dated different guys. She's dated different guys in the church, and she was older. And I remember she got a boyfriend, and then, he started touching me. And I'm thinking, okay, like, is this normal? Because you question these things, like, is this normal? He was and I'm not trying to say what I'm about to say to cause any type of issues. This is just how I really feel. He was a Hispanic immigrant from the Dominican Republic. His culture was different, and I wanted to be accepting at a young age, like understanding people from different backgrounds. My mom went from cooking collard greens and chitlins, like, to making like black beans and rice. And it's funny that I say that. I mean, like, on my dad's side, we're Barbados, and on my mom's side, we have Jamaican too. So it's like, yeah, I'm already Caribbean, but like the difference, like making from grits and oxtail, grits and all that, to like now we're making like empanadas, And I remember him waiting outside my bedroom door at night. And this was a frequent thing that was happening. I had to be like 8 years old, 9 years old. And I'm like, this is really weird. Like, it's uncomfortable. So I would pee I'm going to admit this on camera. I can't believe it, but I'm big. I would pee the bed on purpose just so I don't have to get up at night for him to abuse me. Like, that's what I would do. And my mom, she would be so mad at me. Like, you're just being lazy. Why are you peeing the bed? I'm like, oh, it was a mistake. But it really wasn't. I just didn't want to be bothered with. So I remember one day, I remember this day really clear because I had a neighbor. She was like a grandma to me. I've always met women in my lives who are older, who were like a spirit guide, or like they would guide me. And I used to go right across the street from her house. Her name was Miss Mildred in Norfolk, Virginia. And we would make pancakes. Like it was an escape from my household. And I loved going over there. And then I found out we were going to be moving. And I'm like, shit, Mom, I just got into this school. We just got here. Now we're moving again. Like, my mind has always just been, keep it moving, keep going. And my mom, I was supposed to go to Miss Mildred's house one more night. And my mom was like, no, we're going to go to our new house and we're going to move. And I'm like, she's not hiring a moving crew. It's going to be me. So I remember that at a young age. And I remember that night when my mom's boyfriend, he told me, he said, look, I always take a shower with my daughter. She's 12 years old. And that's when I really started realizing, like, this is really bizarre. And he said, you might as well get used to it because I'm going to be your stepdad one day. And my stomach just went for loops. And because I knew what it meant to keep a family secret. Like, not only did I have one person that was abusing me, I had two people that were abusing me. And, not having any family to say anything to, not having my older brother who, y'all gonna have me messing up my makeup today. No. But not having an older brother that I can say, look, like, this is happening to me. Like, what do I do? Not having a sense of community. So, just knowing that that's not right. So he was adamant about one day being my stepdad. He would abuse me when my mom would turn her back while cooking dinner and, just turn around, grab my butt, turn around, put his hand in my pants. And I'm just thinking, like, I need help. And I remember telling my mom, like, Mom, okay, I found out what it was. I was at the school library and I heard different kids talking. I'm like, look, this isn't right. So I told my mom, I said, Mom, he's doing these things to me. And you would think, like, parents, listen to your kids. This is how I am. Like, listen to your kids. And she told me, she was like, no, he's not doing that. You're lying. And at least the bills are being paid. And that kind of was a nail in the coffin for my relationship with me and my mom, you know. And it wasn't until she caught him one night when we were about to move again, because he was supposed to be moving down to Florida with us. And I'm thinking, okay, I can't do this. This is like the second state that I've been abused in. I'm only like 8, 9 years old. There have been 3 people who have molested me. Like, this must be the normal life. Like, this must be what all kids go through. And I remember the night that my mom caught him, you know, he was drunk. He would always drink. But I think that night he did some other drugs because he had a glass look in his eyes. And I remember him, I was a nosy little kid. I was always peeking through those keyholes, like, let me see what's happening. So I remember him sitting there and he didn't have any clothes. And my mom was like, go put some clothes on. And she was arguing with him. He was like, I don't have to. This is my house. And so she went to bed and I was like, okay, at least they're together. Everything's going to be okay. So one night I was really thirsty. I'm like, look, I'm thirsty. I can't wait until the morning time to get something to drink. And I go outside and lo and behold, here's Chester the molester right there standing in the hallway. And he pulls me in the kitchen. He starts to assault me. And then my mom, you know, she catches him. And I'm just thinking, like, Mom, this is what I was trying to tell you all these years. Like, I wanted you to believe me. And I don't know, it just kind of severed our relationship a bit. That was a lot, I know.
That's a shame.
Yes.
You had to go, how many years without anyone?
So I believe that went on for about 2 years.
And with your brother before that?
And before that, I would say in total with my brother, I would say it was like 10 years. 10 years. And I kept that secret all the way to my 30s. Like, I recently just told my mom, like a few years ago. Yes. And that was her golden child. So imagine being in high school, imagine being 16, and your brother passes away. And I really believe in forgiveness, because for me, when I did find out my brother was in a hospital, I went to his bedside. He was in a coma, and I took the city bus. So I took the city bus. If y'all are familiar with Jacksonville, I took the city bus, and I went to the hospital in Shands, and I would just read the Bible to him. Like, I don't know if he could hear me or not, but I told him, I'm like, I forgive you. I forgive you for everything that you've done. And you know, it was hard because he just had a baby about a month ago. He just had a baby a month before he passed. And all I could do was just tell him that I forgave him. Like, really true forgiveness. I don't know. That's kind of a hard topic for me too.
So this was still early in your life.
Yes.
What were your teenage years like?
So, oh gosh. It gets so much harder than what I'm really saying. Like, my life has been one big trauma shit show after another, and I just didn't have any help. So my teenage years, when we moved down to Jacksonville was a culture shock for me. I'm gonna bring it back a little bit actually. So the last event that happened in Norfolk, Virginia, I was trying to make friends, because when you go to new schools, you got to make friends. So for parents, if you're always moving your kids around and bouncing them around, that's a lot psychologically to deal with. So I went to a school, and I was the only black girl in my class. And growing up, all my brothers are different complexions because we're half siblings. So I'm the darkest one of my mom's kids. And I've always felt that I wasn't pretty enough, that I wasn't good enough, that I was too black, because I wasn't red bone or light skinned. And I remember I took the school bus, and this girl, she tells me, she says, you can't sit here. And I'm thinking, okay, why not? Like, it's a seat. She said, you can't sit here because my parents told me not to sit next to N-words, and you're an N-word. And then it was the first time I ever heard that word because, I grew up in Philadelphia, and where you see everybody, it's a melting pot of everybody. Like, one of my closest friends, she was from Vietnam. So I grew up with being friends with everyone. But she told me, she said, you can't sit here next to me because you're an N-word. Never heard it, didn't even know what was going on. And I talked to my mom about it, and she told me some things I might be facing because I'm a little bit darker. I mean, it's okay, I love it. But I remember moving down to Florida, and Florida was it was a larger culture shock. I went to move down to Florida. So imagine taking a girl from inner city Philadelphia to the Virginia to a trailer park on the west side of Jacksonville. Oh my goodness. Like I don't even know how to explain it because I was already hurt by what was said from someone who didn't look like me. So I already had that self-fulfilling prophecy that if I meet another little girl who's got blonde hair, she's probably going to call me the same thing too. So I was kind of worried about making friends. So when I came down to Jacksonville, they told me, they said, wow, you talk funny. We're going to call you wheat bread. And I'm like, why would you call me wheat bread? Because they said, you don't talk black, you don't look black, you don't act black. I might look black, but you don't act black. So I was thinking, well, what's acting black? Now, keep in mind, I'm an 80s baby, so I was around during the hip-hop boom and everything that happened, and I couldn't understand what did it mean to act black. So I was always criticized about having friends from different backgrounds. I've had a lot of Hispanic friends, Asian friends, and people would judge that, and I really never understood it. So for my teenage years, after we moved into the trailer park, I met one of my close friends. We're still friends to this day, actually. Her name's Nicole. And her parents were so sweet. They're from Texas. Hey, Miss Ann. And they were so sweet to me. They didn't treat me differently based on my skin. And we went everywhere together. When they saw her, they saw me. We were like ebony and ivory. And then we had to move out of our mobile home because they had a lot of electrical issues. And we had to put our stuff in storage. That's why I hate storage units, and I cannot stand watching storage wars because that really is somebody's stuff that they value. They just lost their storage. But we put all of our stuff into a storage unit, and we moved to the I.M. Schulzbacher Center for the Homeless. And that was a big culture shock as well. Because remember, in Philadelphia, we were the first black family to move into one of these neighborhoods in Philly. So imagine being from the suburbs, being from Philadelphia before the gang violence and before the gangs moved in. And that's all gangs. You had the Italian gangs too. And then moving to Virginia and then to a trailer park in Jacksonville. I'm like, great, Mom. Like, we're really at rock bottom. Not the trailer park because I love my trailer park people. But we're in a homeless shelter. Like, Mom, I don't have my own room. And it was the first time we had to share a room with another family. And it was a mom, and she had 2 kids. Then we had a communal bathroom, and I'm thinking, this is my life. Like, I'm 11 years old. You watch TV, and you see so many kids, they go home, and they go to their room, and they're having fun. And then I see my life, and I'm in a soup kitchen line getting my breakfast. And every morning at 5 a.m., and this lady, Miss April, I know you're probably watching this, she would knock at the door, boom, 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 5 a.m., time to get up. Boom, 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 5 a.m. They would walk around, not waking everybody up for breakfast because at 6 a.m., wake-up call was at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. was breakfast. Well, for me, I had to leave to take the city bus at about 6:15. And if you're familiar with Jacksonville, the homeless shelter is right across the street from the jail and the coffee house. That's why I can't stand the smell of coffee sometimes because it gives me that PTSD. But I would have to walk at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then sometimes it'd still be dark. And I'd walk from the back door of the homeless shelter, and I'd go take the city bus because I didn't want to change schools, and I didn't want anybody at my middle school to know that we no longer had a house. We were in a homeless shelter. So my 6th grade year, in the middle of my 6th grade year, we were homeless. And I remember, this is what I say, if you're an educator and you're watching this, or you're a counselor and you're watching this, treat your students with respect. You don't know what they're going through, and a lot of people just put on a smile so that they can make it every day. Like me, I'm always smiling. Even if I'm hurting inside, I'm smiling because it could always be worse. And I remember running for the city bus in the morning to go so I wouldn't be late to school. And then one afternoon, I remember we got out of school at like 4:15, and I had a teacher, she was trying to hold me back. And I'm like, look, I can't be late. I have to go home. I have to take the bus. Because if you're late in the evening, your parents can get a write-up. You can get kicked out of the shelter if you're late. And if I missed the bus, the next bus didn't come until 5:30. That would put me late downtown, and my mom would get a write-up, or you could get locked out. So I remember running for the bus with all my stuff. And there was this bus driver, her name was Miss Sandy. I think she had a jerry curl. She always wore a hat. She drove the West Side 2 bus. It was right there where Jeb Stewart was at. And she'd wait for me. She would wait for me. Like at that time, I don't think I really knew what it meant. And as an adult looking back, I see that. She waited for me. And then sometimes she'll tell me, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. So I'm going to tell the other bus driver that there's a little girl who takes the bus every day to wait for you. That meant so much to me because she cared. She was an adult who wasn't getting anything from me. She was an adult who was touching me. She was an adult who wanted to see me do well because she saw me going to get an education. And I did that for a few months until we moved out the shelter. Now, the shelter wasn't that bad for the kids because they did have a lot of youth programs. Mr. Kendall was the advocate at the shelter. And then they had Girl Scouts. And it was a non-traditional troop because, think about it. Who's a homeless Girl Scout? But they had a program at the shelter for Girl Scouts. And that's when I learned, the Girl Scout promise. I learned about having this integrity, having this standard for yourself, having these boundaries. And I said, okay, I'm part of a Girl Scout. Like, I can't disappoint my Girl Scout leader. That's the benefit of having adults and mentors and being in programs, because someone's going to believe in you. Someone's going to see something in you that reminds them of a younger time. And they're going to help you the best that they can. So yes, my 6th grade and 7th grade year was hard, and I wanted to be in sports so bad, but I wasn't able to because, of course, you got to stay after school. My mom's legally blind. She don't drive, and they didn't have Uber when I was a kid. So it was hard 6th grade year, 6th, 7th grade.
You graduated?
Oh, yes. So I graduated. I've always felt that I'm one decision away from going into a hardship of life. And I've always made sure just to keep on going. Middle school, high school is where it gets really interesting for my life. When we move out the shelter, I'm thinking, okay, we are done with that place. I'm never going back to another shelter ever again. I do not want to be homeless. We get out, we move into, my mom meets this guy. My mom, right? I love you, Mom. My mom meets this guy at the homeless shelter. He used to be homeless too. So they both get a house together. So we're moving out the shelter into his house. And it was like off of Myrtle Avenue and Kings Road. Like, it's talking about the hood. Like we were really in the hood. I remember this one time this person was on drugs, but they sell me some bus passes because I needed some bus passes. They were 75 cents back in the day, so I did buy it, and the bus driver let me get on with it. But 6th grade, 7th grade, went through that. We moved out the homeless shelter. She moved in with this guy. We got our own house, and he was a truck driver, so he wasn't as home as much. He didn't molest me or anything like that. He wasn't touchy or anything. He just pretty much minded his business. But him and my mom had some issues and some conflict. The good part that came from that is while living there, we met my godmom, or I would call her like another angel. But there was this young woman, her name was Yolanda. And I saw this lady. I was coming back from school because I was taking the bus to the north side. I was coming back from school. And there was this beautiful woman, and just her aura, her energy was just so strong. And I was walking back, and I said, hey, you live next door to me. I live next door to you. And we started talking, And I introduced her mom to my mom. And this lady, she was probably, well, I don't even know her age right now because she won't tell me because she's mysterious. But I would probably say she was in her 30s. So it was like a little sister, big sister program without even signing the paperwork for it. And she took me under her wing. She would take me to places like the library. And this was back in the day when you wanted to learn like song lyrics. I'm older. And I remember one time I wanted to learn these song lyrics and I wasted her time. I printed out all these song lyrics and she said, this is not what the library is used for. It's to educate yourself. She tore them up and that really broke my heart. But she taught me some valuable lessons. You know, she exposed me to asking questions, critical thinking, a new lifestyle of, healthy eating, things that I didn't have before. And she always taught me that there's a proper way to speak up and there's a proper way to handle business. You can be classy or you can be trashy, or you can be a little bit of both. But, she took the time, a mentor, a neighbor, took the time to teach me things that my mom wasn't able to because of her mental health situations. And, life was good. I had a part-time job. So I've been working since I was 12 years old. It was a student work program, and I would just work in a student work program to make extra money. It was selling items door to door. And I was starting to understand that if I get a job, I can make money. I can buy things for myself. If I have an education, it's going to take me out of these neighborhoods that I don't want to live in ever again. And everything was going good for a while, and then my brother got sick, and he passed away.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. And it's hard. It's hard when I don't even know how to respond to that sometimes, because when he passed away, the abuse stopped. So I think for a lot of people that might watch this, I know that we all have secrets inside. I know that we all have things that hurt us, people that hurt us. And when we see them at holiday gatherings or we just interact with them, it's so hard not to hate them. Like, my brother passed away, he abused me for 10 years. And I had to speak at his funeral. You don't know how hard that was to want to just be like, I really just want to say F it. I was over it. But I felt for my mom. I don't know how to explain that. Like a parent, like I've always been my mom's mom, so I saw her hurting, and I couldn't lash out. So I wrote a poem. I didn't want to be like, I didn't curse him out. I didn't air out all that business because it wasn't a time or the place for that. Like, there's a time and a place for everything. And it was really hard. And that was the first time I rode in a limousine. I've always loved limos since I was a child. But the first time I rode in a limousine was for my brother's funeral. I mean, how do you feel about those things? So when people tell me, I'm sorry about your brother, I kind of feel, I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel. It's hard. It's hard being there holding your mom while she was crying and mourning over the loss of her son. And a part of you is rejoicing that you don't have to worry about that anymore. But another part of you misses the side that wasn't abusive, the funny brother, like you want that. And I think a lot of that comes from him being abused when he was a child by his father. I try to look into it a bit further and not be as hurt. If that makes sense.
It does. When you left school, when you were done with school, where'd you go?
Oh, yes. So I went to a medical magnet school. I went to A. Philip Randolph. So at first, like I say, everything was good. And then you know what happened? We got kicked out that house. My mom's boyfriend was like, he put his hands on her. It was a domestic violence situation. Moved back into a shelter. I was like, shit. I thought we were out of this already. Another shelter? So we moved, I know, right? We moved to the Hubbard House. And it was the first time I've lived at a domestic violence shelter. And of course, they bring you through counseling and you talk about your feelings. And I was like, you want to talk about my feelings? I'm tired of living like this. Like, Mom, I can do a better job. I don't want to be under anyone's thumb. I don't want to feel like a burden. Like, I'm tired of not having the things that I need as a teenager. I look at my peers and they're doing everything and I'm not. And I want those social skills. I want to be in that environment. So yeah, I was lived at the homeless shelter. I pretty much did my own thing because I stayed in a lot of school activities, and I was in high school, so it was even more embarrassing than middle school. I didn't tell nobody. I joined the cheerleading team. Like I was a homeless cheerleader. Like I joined every activity after school so that I could stay busy. And A. Philip Randolph, they were like a vocational school as well. So it was a regular high school, but they had medical magnet if you were interested in the medical program. They had shop class. They had AC, HVAC. Everyone's gonna be mad. They had a computer technology program, and my program was nursing, and I loved it so much. And I had a teacher. I was in the Health Occupation Students of America program. Like I was an overachiever. Even though I was being abused and going through all those situations, I had to have an outlet. If I wasn't going to talk to anyone, I was going to do activities to keep me busy, because if I wasn't home, nothing could happen to me. Like I controlled my own life. And I remember having to tell my teacher that I needed a ride home because I missed the school bus and the city bus. And sometimes I would get off at one school bus stop and take the city bus so nobody would know that we're homeless. And I remember I told her that I needed a ride, but I told her, okay, Miss Collins, like this is my situation. We live at the shelter. She said, I don't have to drop you off at your door. I'll drop you off, close enough to downtown and you walk back. There were no cell phones, so I'm sure her mom heart was like worried, like you're in the roughest part of the neighborhood. You're gonna walk around the corner and go to a shelter. What if something happens to you? But she did it anyway. She did it out the goodness of her heart. So when people say things about certain people who have different views or look different, like she's a white lady. She stopped her car to take me home. She didn't have to do that, especially in these type of climates. She didn't have to, but she did. And I just knew that I had to get out of there. And my mentor, Yolanda, she gave me a book by Ben Carson called Think Big. And I read Ben Carson's book, and I'm thinking, wow, he's a neurosurgeon? But his life, like his mom was 13 years old and she couldn't read, and I was flabbergasted by his life, and I'm thinking, if he can do it, I can do it. If that man can go through all that hardship and dysfunction, I can do it too. I've been through more. So I started keeping myself on the right track academically. I graduated from high school with a 3.8 GPA on a 4.0 scale. And it was really hard for me because I really had to actually go to a real library. I was around before the internet, so getting internet at your house wasn't a possibility. Having an actual desktop computer wasn't small like the little thin computers. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And I had to push myself to get an education. Through high school, I heard about going to college, and don't laugh, but I thought college was only for rich white kids because I've only seen it on TV. Or it was like the kids in a different world, like it's a TV show called A Different World, and it was like the Black historical universities. But I'm thinking college is for people that have money. We are broke. Like, we don't have any money. My mom just went to the food bank, so how can we afford me going to college? And I learned about scholarships. And I applied for so many scholarships because that was the only way I would make it. So yes, I'm grateful I did finish high school.
And tell me about your life after that.
I know, it gets like bad, worse, and then, ooh, damn, like, so yeah, after that, once I graduated from high school, I realized that I was always falling asleep. Like I was really low energy and I didn't know why, because I was very active in high school. And then like right at 18, something changed. And I started doing research. I snored really bad. Like even though I'm like 5'2" and like 140 pounds, like I'm small, I used to snore. And at that time I was like 120 pounds, but I would snore and get a lot of headaches. And I started doing the research and realized that I had obstructive sleep apnea and I had narcolepsy. Never even heard of that. I didn't even know what it was. I'm like, what? Kind of like Deuce Bigelow, male gigolo, falling right asleep. So I realized I had these conditions and I had no health insurance. So that's how I feel like the system scams you. I feel like all this big pharma stuff is a lie because I was technically uninsured, or what's the word for it? I was uninsured, pre-existing condition, that's what it was. So they told me I had a pre-existing condition. I'm like, okay, well, how can I get treatment for it if I didn't know that it existed and now y'all told me I had it? Does that make any sense? So I realized I had to go on medication for that, and that medication was like $250 a month for just 30 pills to be able to focus. And I'm thinking, I don't have a real good job. So when I was in high school, my senior year, I got a job at a special needs daycare. I've always loved kids. I've always loved helping, being a caretaker, because I was a caretaker to my mom, who was legally blind, so it wasn't a problem with me helping anybody else. And this daycare was the cutest thing ever. It was called DLC Nurse and Learn. And they had kids who had muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, autism. It didn't matter what it was. And I had one young girl, she was 3 years old, and she was blind, and she was the sweetest little baby. And that didn't stop her from tearing up the baby room. So, you see, I had my job, and I realized how much the medication cost, and I said, look, I'm not gonna be able to make enough money. So I actually took on 2 more jobs. I don't know how I was able to do that, because when you have sleep apnea or any type of neurological disorder like narcolepsy, you can't work as much. You need to have more sleep. You need to fix your schedule. So me, I was popping no-dos like M&Ms. I was drinking Coca-Cola caffeine to stay awake, and I got 2 more jobs. I know. So I worked at Crystal's. I'd be at Crystal's from 10 at night to 6 in the morning, serving those Crystal Chick burgers and stuff like that. And then I would take the city bus from Crystal's all the way to, so basically from west side of Jacksonville to Paxton area, all the way downtown to FCCJ, when it used to be a community college. And I would go to class there until 1 o'clock. Then when I'd be finished with that, and I would go in my uniform, so I would go to college smelling like burgers and grease. And I remember sitting there at the library just crying like, God, I am so tired. I could fall asleep right here in this library, but I'm on a scholarship, and I really need to get my education so I won't have to be homeless again, so that I can get out of the hood. Like, it was like my get-rich-quick scheme was going to college the long way and working hard. So I remember sitting in the library smelling like food from the night before, took the city bus again. I stopped at a gas station. I washed up with a washcloth in the bathroom. I changed my clothes for my second job, which was working at a daycare. And I did that. And I would put all my clothes in my backpack. Like, my backpack was like my turtle shell, because I would just put everything in there, shoes, change of clothes. And then after my second job, I had a job working at a restaurant as a delivery person. And that was at 7 o'clock until midnight some days. So I would fluctuate working 3 jobs. And after I realized I wasn't making enough money, like, I was trying to work smarter, not harder, I had to let the daycare job go and try to have something that would work around my college schedule. So yes, I was a full-time college student. I worked 2 to 3 jobs, just trying to break generational curses. That's what I was trying to do. And then I fell into the restaurant industry, which pretty much ruined my life after that. It ruined me.
In what ways?
Okay. This is where it gets really hard in the interview. So I do apologize. Like I say, my makeup is going to be really ugly after this, and I tried so hard. So I started working at this restaurant off of Lane Avenue, and it's like right next to a strip club. So it's a really sketchy area. And like I said, they said they were hiring. I'm like, I can drive, I can do food, I can be a cashier. Like, that's not a problem. And my boss, I don't even know where he was from at the time, some Middle Eastern country or whatnot. Seemed pretty nice. I did realize, like, there'd be some days, because I was a hungry college student. So when you're in college, you don't have any money. Those textbooks are like $150, $200. Well, nobody told me how expensive they were. And battling with narcolepsy, there was a time when I lost some of my scholarships because you can't stay awake in traditional class, and I would start writing and fall asleep, start writing, fall asleep. So, I struggled with college trying to have accommodations. Like, when you're in regular school, you get an IEP when you're in secondary school. Well, post-secondary in college, they don't really give you an IEP. I didn't know that they have services and accommodations. I was trying to do it on my own. and it was a lot of work. So working with the restaurant, I started delivering food to all types of sketchy places. Like one time I delivered some food to this hotel, and I'm thinking, this is a trap. I remember the guy came to the door with his robe on. He was like, you can drop the pizza off right there. You can come in and drop it off. I'm like, no, I'm good. Because like I say, I'm 5'2" in these neighborhoods, dropping food off to these truck stops and stuff. And I remember delivering food to this drug dealer's house. I can tell it was a drug dealer because there was stuff all on the table. I mean, it was like a apartment with like 4 guys, and I'm standing there. Okay, here's your breadsticks. And I'm trying to be fast, and he's trying to ask me questions, and I'm just smiling. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm that close to going to this type of life. And it just seemed like my boss would always send me to deliver these food. He would always send me to deliver food at these areas where it just wasn't the best. Like, I wouldn't send an 18-year-old young girl to deliver food to a strip club. Like, that's like putting somebody on a diet at a donut shop. They gonna try to taste the donuts, you know it, no matter how much willpower you have. So the same thing. I remember my boss, Zach, he had me deliver food to a strip club, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. It was jumping. It was a busy place. And I remember this one girl, she said, oh my God, you're so pretty. Well, I've never heard that before. Like, I didn't really think that. And she was like, if you ever need to make extra money, you can make more money here instead of delivering that food. And I remember one of her friends telling me, asking me questions about school and life. And she told her, she said, no, she's too smart. She doesn't need anything like that. Like, if you have goals, don't get into this life. It's not going to be for you. And I remember, getting my tip. It didn't matter who you were, I was always kind to you. So even though she was a stripper, she's like, come on, girl, come get my ones out of here. So, she pulled over her belt, and all the strippers were coming, picking up their food. And I didn't see them as a label, because some women, I found out they had their kids. Some women are trying to pay for, their education. The only difference between me and a lady lady who was a stripper was that she's trying to pay for her education. I'm trying to pay for my education. I'm selling wings. She's dancing. We're all just trying to pay bills. And I remember going back to the restaurant, which was right next door, and I started thinking about it. I was like, wow, I could finish my college so much faster, because at that time I lost all my scholarships, and I'm thinking, if I don't have any scholarships, I'm paying out of pocket for college classes. I need fast money. Like, I want to finish school. I had a dream. I had a goal. And I remember talking to my boss about it, like, I really need to finish school. And the hard part about my boss is that I could say I was hungry. You weren't allowed, you had to buy all your food at the restaurant. Even if you were working like 10-hour days, you still had to buy your food. And I'm thinking, I am so hungry. Like, I'm cooking food and delivering food, and I can't afford to eat it. This sucks. Like, I'm like, this is not the life for me. Like, I need money. And I remember my boss had a guy come in, and he told me, he said, oh, my friend's gonna open a restaurant, and it would be a good opportunity for you to make extra hours. Like, you can make extra money, and it might be a little bit closer to you. So I'm thinking, okay, you said extra money. I need the money. I need to pay for school. I need to get out of my mom's house. Just living there with all the PTSD and everything she's did to me all my life, I felt like every day I wake up, I'm reliving everything that happened to me. And I would feel I could do a better job at protecting myself than I felt my mom could. So I remember going to work for an interview at this restaurant in Jacksonville. Am I allowed to say the name?
Sure.
Okay. So it was a restaurant, Tuna's Wings and Subs, off of Sutel in Jacksonville. And I'm thinking, okay, it's a little restaurant. It's not really that big. I could serve food in here. And I started working, and it seemed like a great opportunity. I mean, there was really no one else to compete with. It was a new business, so I think there's only one other cashier. So I'm a pretty fast learner. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of most. And I remember working there, and it was the first time I ever had a Muslim boss before. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I wasn't offending anybody. So I was trying to be respectful, trying to learn about other cultures. And that's when the rest of my industry just took a turn for it. It really just ruined my life. You want me to go into more detail about how?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. All right. So it's really hard. Okay. You ever been hurt before? I kind of got this job because I know I needed money, but I was also hurt by the church. I was hurt by the church because, like I say, when I was in high school, my brother died, then turned around, my father died. My father died like 8 months before me graduating high school. And I remember just being angry. I remember being angry with God. I remember being angry with the church because I'm like, God, how could you let something like this happen to me? I've never done anything to anybody in my life. You know, how could you let this happen to me? How could you let me be molested since 3? How could you let everyone abuse me, use me, exploit me? You know, when am I going to have relief? And I remember when my brother passed away, I was so angry with the church. I said, I'm never going back to church again. I don't trust Christians. They're all a bunch of lying, hypocrite, two-faced. Like I was there. I got my Bible. I donated it to the thrift store. I'm like, I'm done. And I took a world religion class. So that's why when I took the world religion class and the opportunity for employment came up, I'm working with someone from a different country. I'm like, okay, this is great. I'll have a firsthand source to ask questions to. It was really firsthand. I'll put it like that. My employer initially, he started to hit on me sometimes. And I didn't take it like any big deal. I didn't see it like a big deal because, I mean, that's kind of the society that we're in. You know, these guys would just hit on you and you just keep on working. I was kind of used to it. And then he just started asking me a lot of questions about my family. Like, why are you Christian? And, you know, I told him why, not just because of my family, but it was my faith. You know, when I told him that when I was in high school, I got selected for this TV show. The last time I was in California, which is interesting, but I got accepted for this TV show when I was in high school after moving out the shelter, and it was called Ultimate Choice. And it was like a Christian-based reality TV show. And like they flew us out here to Lake Tahoe, California. And that was one of my biggest accomplishments. So I was telling my boss, like, you know, I've got dreams one day, you know, I'm a Christian, you know, I want to travel around the world. You know, just you feel like you can talk to somebody, if that makes sense. And every day my boss would like ask me different questions, like, well, what's faith? You know, how do you feel about faith? He would ask me, you know, what are you going to do in 5 years? Just all these different questions. He asked me about my brother's trauma. You know, have I ever had an abuse in my life? And I've, you know, being naive, being young, feeling like somebody cared. Didn't know that I was being groomed right in plain sight. And I remember him telling me, you know, you want to make some real good money? I was like, okay, what are you talking about? And he said, you know, I have siblings who want to come to America, and maybe you could help me out and I could help you. And this is going to sound so crazy. Like, when I started saying it out loud, I was like, oh my God, I got scammed and I got duped. Like, when I started researching exactly what grooming is and exactly what forced labor is and exactly what trafficking is, I realized that I got duped. And it just makes me mad right now because he was like, well, I could give you some money and, you know, you could still work here. You know, I'll take care of you and maybe you could meet my brother. And I told my mom about it. And my mom, like, she was on the board. Like, she didn't deter me. Like, right now as a mom, if my 18-year-old daughter, or when my daughter turns 18, if she told me, hey, Mom, I'm going to go overseas, I'm going to marry my boss's brother, and I'm going to convert to Islam and cover my hair. If my daughter right now would tell me something like that, we would have an issue because I need to see her mindset. Like, there's no way I'm going to let my child go marry some guy I've never met in a country I've never been to. So looking back in hindsight, I'm like, Mom, you were not mentally present. You weren't there to protect me once again, like for the umpteenth time, I don't know. But I remember him telling me, why don't you meet my brother? He showed me a picture. He was like, why don't you meet my brother? I mean, I've got a nice family. I've got nice genes. And at first I kind of shrugged it off and took it as like, okay, yeah, you're just bullshitting me. Like, you're just joking. So I kept on working. And as the months went by, he started telling me about everything happening in my life. He was love bombing me. He said everything that happened in my life was because I was a Christian and because I wasn't following the true God, Allah. I was like, what? Okay, well, being someone who's been through so much and being someone who's young and your frontal lobe isn't developed, you're gonna believe what people tell you. And that's what I did. And I started looking more into Arabic. I started looking more into Islam. And I actually converted to Islam. And this, the whole point of my story, I still have friends who are Muslim. I still speak a good amount of Arabic. أنا بتكلم عربي. I can go from Arabic to country Southern to hood in 5 seconds. So I still speak, and I can talk to you in Spanish. I can still speak a good amount of Arabic. And I still have friends who I love dearly who are of that faith. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm targeting just one group of people. But what happened next, and what I'm about to tell you, this is my experience. And, I converted to Islam. I broke up with my high school sweetheart because I felt like I was living in sin because obviously I was an infidel. I was the wrong religion. I was a kafirun, I was a non-believer. And like I say, I remember telling my Mom, I don't eat pork no more. She was like, what the hell is all that about? I started reading the books like Malcolm X and, started gearing more into like 5%ers, Black Panthers. And I was like, I'm not eating pork anymore. That's something I'm not going to do. So it was kind of like the Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali moment where you're just trying to find yourself. And that's all I was really trying to do is find myself. And I remember going in my closet and getting rid of my other clothes, like all my clothes. Because my employer was like, if you're a young woman, you should be covered up or you're going to go to the hellfire. You're going to go to hell. Like most of the women in hell in the Arabic or in the Muslim faith are women. So I'm like, man, I've been punished for having this life. And on top of that, I'm going to hell. I need to straighten up. Like, it was like religious persuasion. And there's a case that this happened in Tampa not too long ago where this whole church was just trafficking people based on telling them you're going to go to hell and you should fear God. Like, that type of input messes with your mind, especially when you're doing it for 8 to 10 hours a day. So I converted to Islam, and I remember my employer telling me we should help each other because, now we're Muslim, Muslimin. So I would take on extra shifts. He'll tell me, oh, you can work a little extra today. And I'm thinking, yeah, but I'm just supposed to be doing like 40 hours because I still had another job. Well, quit your other job and just work here, and then I'll give you more hours. That was the worst mistake I could have did ever because I was working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. The only days I would have off, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter. And sometimes I'd be like, okay, look, I need some time off. Like, when are you going to hire somebody else? We'd bring somebody in, we would hire them, and either they just didn't have, good customer service, or sometimes they would steal. Like, there would be something where that person gets fired, and then I couldn't take off. And the big excuse was, yes, once we hire somebody, you can have time off. Once we hire somebody, you can have time off. Or you can hire people but never keep them. And then I started realizing my employer started to change towards me. Like, he wasn't the nice, kind person I've known. He was getting more about business. And that's when he was like, look, I can help you get your passport. And my employer helped me get my passport to go to North Africa to meet his brother.
You got married.
At first I didn't know what a green card scam marriage was. I didn't know about anything about that. But boy, I'm pretty sure that by the time I'm done with this interview, I'm going to have a job at the White House being the new immigration czar, because this is horror. Like, honestly, Trump hit me up.
How old were you?
So I was 18 years old.
You got married at 18?
I got 18. So, and this is going to sound so bad. Oh my gosh. So I got married at 18. I went overseas. I met his family. Like, it was my first time in a third world country ever. It was my first time having a passport, going abroad. I mean, I went from Jacksonville, Atlanta to Charles de Gaulle Airport. Like, everyone spoke French, and I'm like, parlez-vous français or parlez-vous anglais? Like, I didn't speak, so I was like using Rosetta Stone or trying to look different phrases up. And I remember going to North Africa, Tunisia. I went to Tunisia. And I met his family. The family seemed like they were okay. You know, even to this day, like, I have no problem with his sisters. I do love them dearly, because a lot of women of that faith and a lot of women in that country, they don't have a voice. They don't have a voice. There's no social services. The men don't listen to them. Like, women are down here. You know, of course, some people say, well, I'm a different type of Muslim. I believe in this, or I believe in elevating women like Khadijah, like, or Fatima. No, they actually don't, and I've lived it. So, but when I was in Tunisia, I was like, oh, this is a nice place. Like, the guy seems kind of nice. I met him. You know, I let his brother know, okay, I think I'll marry him. We got married, and that guy was an asshole. My gosh. At first, it started off nice, but then he always seemed to talk about he wants money. And I'm like, okay, I'm American, but I'm not dumb. Like, what do you mean you need money? Oh, when I come to America one day, I'm gonna buy a BMW. You know that you gotta work, right? Like, you know, you don't just go to the lot and get a BMW. But I guess because of the media and how people perceive America, they think that everyone's like got a gold chain, everyone black is like Beyonce, you know, like they really glorify America. So every time I was walking around, people were like, oh, that's the American girl, that's the American girl. Like, I started picking up on Arabic very well, so I understand a good amount, and I would just listen. Like, I became an observer. And there was a time, because I would come back and forth. So between 2003, 2004 to 2008, I was living back and forth between Tunisia and Jacksonville, Florida. And I remember one time I was over there and I got pregnant. And normally for some people, that's the most exciting thing, is to be able to carry a baby, like to be a mom. And I had a miscarriage, you know, and I didn't even know what was happening. And I remember lying on the bathroom floor, not knowing what's happening, not knowing, like, everyone was asleep. It was like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. Not knowing, like, hey guys, I need help. Like, there's no cell phone I could pick up and call, like 911. Like, I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. So I cleaned everything up, you know, and I just went back to bed. And I didn't tell his sister or his family what happened until the next morning. And then, of course, I went to the hospital and stuff, but I just went back to bed. And I told him about it, and he wasn't even, like, kind or compassionate. He was just like, well, sometimes, you know, you're born, you live, you die. Just something that harsh, something that cold. And, you know, it really broke me, because when you lose a baby and you see another mom who's pregnant, you imagine, you think, like, wow, that could have been me. When you start seeing other little kids, you're like, wow, you know, it's a joy that you get. I can say that for me. And I would see baby bottles, or I would see different baby clothes at the store when I was over there. And I just couldn't. And I remember calling my mom and telling her what happened. I told you I was going to mess that makeup up. I remember telling her what happened. And, you know, she said, I'm really sorry. And when are you coming back home? But it wasn't like that emotional mom love. You know, like, there's some people who take their parents for granted, and they have amazing moms who, you know, bake cookies, answer their phone calls, thank you. Some people have some amazing moms where they bake cookies, they spend hours on the phone, they get pedicures, they do things together. And I've always wanted that with my mom. And it really didn't happen. So being overseas, just losing a baby, I got my comfort from his sisters. I got my comfort from his mom, and even though the guy was a jerk, I remember them telling me, just go back to America. Don't go live your life. They saw that I was kind. Even his friends were like, look, why are you treating that girl like that? She's pregnant. Like, you're telling her to hurry up and walk fast and she's pregnant. Like, dude, you're being a jerk. She can't. And I remember that, just some women, they tell their husband, hey, I'm craving some pickles, some ice cream, and some In-N-Out burger, whatever the case may be, and they're willing to go get it. For me, I'm not going to the store. And I'm thinking, wow, this is hell. I'm an American citizen, and I'm being treated like shit on someone else's soil. Okay, let me go back home. I can't wait to get back home. And I remember one time there was an argument, and he attempted to hit me. And that's when I'm like, you know what? This is what I signed up for. I think I'm pretty much better than that. And I remember coming back to America and just being like, I'm so over this. This guy only wants to use me just so he can come here to make money and probably divorce me and get a green card like they all do. And I remember telling his brother, like, I need to get a divorce. I don't know how to do it because international divorces, you have to go back to that country to get divorced and go to their court system and stuff. And I wasn't going to do that. I didn't even want to step foot back there. And he said, no, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. You go ahead and continue the work. Once the papers are done, you can move on with your life. Like, I thought it was like that simple. And I come from humble beginnings, as you can tell in the interview. I don't have money for a lawyer. I don't have money for a lawyer right now. I don't have any support, family, or help. And I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, I'll work for a year, or I'll work for however amount of time that I can until this paperwork goes through. I'm here in America, and I find out I'm pregnant from before I left with another child. And I'm like, okay, so I want to get a divorce, but I'm also pregnant. And the way that I found out I was pregnant wasn't even like going to the store, finding out, okay, let's get a test. Wait, I missed my period. No, it wasn't that. I was having a lot of pain in my abdomen, and I was having shortness of breath, like I was having a heart attack. Like, I couldn't understand what was going on. And I go to the ER, and they told me that I had an ectopic pregnancy, and the baby was growing in my fallopian tube. So they wanted to give me emergency surgery. And I'm like, this guy, I'm over everything with these people right now. The restaurant industry, people from other countries, like, I was just over everything. And they performed the surgery. Dr. Cody, rest in peace because he's no longer here, but he coached me through a lot that I didn't understand about myself. And he said, look, there's a 5% chance that you'll ever have a child. So I want you to know that. But there's options that there's other options that are out there. And it broke me, because not just once, twice. Twice I lost kids. And, my heart goes out to anybody. It doesn't matter what political side you're on. I don't care what you look like on the outside. If you've been through hardship and hurt and trafficking, and just, my heart hurts for you. And it put me in a lot of reflective state, knowing that I survived all that and going overseas and this horrible situationship. And now I'm laying here having surgery for a second time, losing a child. And that's not even the worst part. It gets even worse from that part of the story. Mark, you need a cigarette.
We're going to need a drink after this. So you have one.
I have one. Cheers. Yeah.
But there's more.
There's more. I know. It's like, wait, there's more. It's like those game shows. You're like, no, I don't want any more. But yes, I came back home and I had to go back and live with my mom. That was horrible because my mom, with all the trauma that she's faced, and like I said, I still love people. I don't hate my mom because I have not been in her exact situation. My father wasn't the best person. I love my father, but there's abuse allegations, there's sexual abuse allegations about my father with my half siblings, with my brothers, and the rumor is that the reason why my brother won't talk to me right now and wants nothing to do with me is because I'm dark skinned. I look like my father. So when he looks at me, he sees my father, the person who caused him hurt. Like there's so much trauma and pain within within the Black community. There's so much secrets and pain and trauma that I'm tired of it. Like I'm so over it. And all this trauma and everything I've dealt with started just coming to a head when I realized, after coming back from Tunisia and all these things happening to me, and I just told my boss, look, I want out of all of this. I just want to move on, finish with my life, and not look back. We agreed. He filed the paperwork. I kept on working at the restaurant. And then he was like, well, maybe I can take you as a second wife. And I'm like, bro, I just lost 2 babies. What are you talking about? And he was like, well, in Islam, you're allowed to have more than one wife. You're allowed to have multiple wives. And I'm like, yeah, I'm divorcing your brother. But that's acceptable in Islam. So he was very interesting, like narcissistic personality disorder type, always created a hostile work environment. Like there's people who work at that restaurant and they're just like, look, he's a lunatic. He will yell at you. He will, only hire young women who don't know boundaries, who won't turn around and speak up for themselves. And I really started to see exactly who he was. And I knew that I wanted out. And as multiple times if we had immigration interviews and they've denied stuff, I'm like, well, can somebody at least talk to me? Can somebody ask me what's going on? Because I'm afraid for my life, but I don't know how to get out and say it because this guy's my employer. He's got my social security number. He has my driver's license copy. He has all this stuff about me. Where can I run to? Like, I'm really not in a good spot. And I just felt trapped. So I got a job. I did change and get a job eventually because I told him, I said, I kind of bent the truth a little bit, but I was as I was in college, because I re-enrolled in college as soon as I got back. I'm like, look, I can't be with silence. I can't live at my mom's house and deal with her nagging every day and make my mental health take a turn for the worse. So I enrolled back into college, no scholarship still, just trying to figure it out. I enrolled at FCCJ. I was working at his business, and I said, you know what, I'm going to apply to become a substitute teacher. So I became a substitute teacher, and that kind of helped me for my process of losing 2 kids. I loved being around young people. I loved being around kids. My favorite grade was middle school, and I did such a great job. So it was like, it was a way of trying to reboost my hope after feeling hopeless, after feeling like, look, this is my life. And I remember still having to work at the restaurant to pay off the debt for the attorney for immigration and the attorney for the divorce. So I still felt like I was trapped in a sense, still working there. And this was about 2008. I know it's 2025 right now, but this is 2008.
Where do you go next?
Where don't we go? So I'm a substitute teacher in Jacksonville. I'm wearing a headscarf, and sometimes people can be, that's why I'm always telling people, like, always be mindful on how you treat people, because you never know how people's hearts change. And I remember people saying, go back to your country. And I'm like, I'm from America. I just have a headscarf on. And, there were days that were harder than others, but I know that people have had different experiences with people from other faiths or cultures. And I started substitute teaching. I loved it. I was a in-school suspension teacher. I know I don't look like that, right? I was an in-school suspension teacher and a parent liaison, and I loved my job. I loved being the teacher I loved being the person that I needed when I was younger, and I remember sometimes I'd have some students who were homeless like me. If you were a homeless student, you're one of my babies, I'd be bringing you food to school the next day. And I remember one girl, she had an event, I think they had like a little dance during hours. I told her, I said, come in my office, I'm gonna do your hair. And I remember bringing my curlers, my gel. I was braiding her hair and those were my babies. And even now I still speak to some of them and they have kids of their own and their kids call me Mimi and I love it, But I remember being there for someone. I remember being there for my students. And like I said, I was working. I had got my own apartment. So then you really couldn't tell me anything. I finally moved out my mom's house and I was like, yes, it's my house, it's my refrigerator. I can leave the lights on as much as I want to. But I got my own apartment. I had my roommate. She was from Arizona. Her name's Lucy. So she came to live with me. And then I had another friend of mine. She came to live with me as well. So there were 3 of us. And we were all Muslim converts. Interesting. So you had vanilla, chocolate, and caramel. So one of my friends, she was a Mennonite convert. My other friend, she was a Hispanic convert. And there's me. So literally it was vanilla, chocolate, and caramel. And, for a while, things were going good. And then my boss had some issues at home and knocked on our door one night and asked could he sleep on our couch. And I'm like, this is strange. Like, you're my employer. You have all of this money. You have all these credit cards. Why can't you just go rent you a room? But we're family and we should help each other. So he came to stay at my house just for like a day. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Well, no. A day turned into a week, turned into a month, turned into years. Like he just came and he just never left. And my friend was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Let's go on vacation for a minute and think about what we need to do to get this man out of our house. Yeah, I know that's your family still, but what do you need to do? And I found out that after doing some research, I found out that my dad had some money that he left at a bank for me. So my dad and I were really close. Even though everything that happened or whatever happened in his life, we were still close. Like I was a daddy's girl. And he told me, he said, listen, baby girl, I remember the last time I saw him, it was at Eugene J. Butler. He came down from Virginia to come visit me. And he was like, your mom and I aren't working out. We're not, we're not going to be moving back together. And I love you so much. But if anything ever happens to me, look at Philadelphia National Bank. I was 13 years old, 14 years old. I remember him telling me that. And I was, in my 20s? And I said, I'm going to look into it because I need money. I want to just go ahead and pay this guy off and just be okay and then go back to my schooling. So I looked into it. Of course, Philadelphia National Bank changed the name so many times. I found out what bank it was. Ironically, he still had the money in the account. So it was like, $5,000, $10,000? I don't remember the exact amount because I blocked out so much at that time. But I think it was like $5,000, $6,000. Anyway, I drove up to New York with my roommate. And because I've never been in that part of New York before, I went to get my dad's death certificate. And I remember my employer / brother-in-law or whatever you want to call him on paper, he said, look, I know that you want to make money. What you can do is give me your father's inheritance, the money he left for you. And I know you're like, no, girl, don't do it. Don't do it. I wish I could have had somebody tell me that. Give me your dad's inheritance and I will invest that money. So like this, you can have your money for school, get your car. Like it seemed so promising. I was like, yes, freedom. Like I felt more motivated. So I went up to New York I knew that I was about to get, divorced. So I'm like, this is perfect. Once the divorce come through, deuces, I'm out of here. And I met somebody up there. And he was from Egypt, nice guy. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try again now. Like, I'm going to give this another try. But he listened to me. He was really nice. And I was like, okay, so let me get my stuff together so I can get out of here. And at that time, I was working, like I say, as a substitute teacher, as a mentor. I had like a school liaison position. And then, let's see, it was what was the third place? Because I always keep like 2 or 3 jobs so I can keep money coming in. And I gave that fool my money. I gave him my money because I felt like I was going to be free, like I was going to have a chance to pay off my debts and not worry about anything else. And when I came back down, because I was working at the Islamic Center too in Jacksonville, I was also a virtual school teacher. And I remember coming back down, unpacking, and I was happy because, I did meet a nice person who I told about my life, and he was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I believe in laying all your cards on the table and transparency. And he was like, yeah, I'd be interested in dating you. How about you just come up here and move to New York? And since I already had family in Philadelphia, New York, and New Jersey, like that's where all my family is at. It would have just been easier, like going back home. And then my employer, he finds out, and we're sitting on the couch watching TV, just sitting down talking, and he pulls out his gun. He points it at me and my roommate, and he's like, tell me, what did you do when you were in New York? And I look at her and she looks at me and I'm just like, is this really happening? I was in New York, but did you see somebody? And I remember just thinking, like looking down the barrel of this gun, he's sitting like really close to me and I'm like, is he really gonna shoot me? Is he really gonna sit here and shoot me? Like, I've given this guy my father's inheritance. I've worked at your shitty restaurant. I've done all these things. I've kept your secrets. I've seen you cooking the books. I've seen you withholding money for taxes. I've seen so much. And this is how you're going to treat me? You're going to you're going to point a gun at me? And my roommate sees that I'm getting upset. And she's like, go upstairs. I talk to him. Like, she's just always been like a fearless Chicana, like if he got a problem with me, like she was my rock. And she's always been a strong person because her boyfriend was an addict. So she's always been the kind of person who doesn't back down. Like she's very, very assertive. She's always been that way. And she said, I'll talk to him. I'll deal with it. And I went upstairs and I remember, sitting on the baluster, like, because we used to live in a townhouse. And I remember sitting on the stairs, just over-listening, like when I was a child, just thinking like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, how do I get out of a situation like this? I don't have anybody, can't tell my mom. I don't have a dad. I don't have a brother. This guy's probably going to kill me, and I'm stuck. And I remember just feeling defeated, and not too long after that, she moved out. And my other friend, she moved out because she was getting married too. So she moved out. So then I was actually alone with my employer and my /brother-in-law and my trafficker. You're like, damn, does it get worse than this? It does.
And where's it go then?
Oh, God. Like, my life, I feel like my life has just been one big shit show. Like, I can't catch a break for anything. So, after she moved out, I was there, like I say, for many years. I didn't get paid no overtime or nothing. For so many years, I worked, 7 days a week, 10 to 10. Like, I remember one guy was in the military, and when he said this, I was like, wait a minute. He said, ma'am, how long you been working at this restaurant? I said, I've been working since 2003, 2004. He was like, I went away. I got deployed. The last place I ate at when I got deployed was here. I left, I came back, and you still here. He said, it's been a year since I've been to this restaurant. He said, you work here, you live here, you're gonna die here. He said, they're gonna bury you under that tree right up there in the front. And I laughed, but it was depressing because I was like, shit, this man's right. I work all the time. Like this is not healthy for me. You know, like someone in their 20s should have a day off. Someone in their 20s should be able to go with their friends, go shopping. I didn't have any friends. I was isolated from everyone. Like I couldn't go to work and wear a shirt with this much skin showing, because then I would hear him giving me a lecture about how that's sinful, how I'm enticing men because they're looking at me, and how God doesn't like that, and you go to the hellfire. Everything, hellfire, haram, everything. And like I said, I felt like I couldn't catch a break after that, in life in general. But when that soldier told me, you know, there's nothing for your life, and I realized I didn't have any dreams. You know, I was still, in the midst of everything that I was doing, I was still taking one college class. Like it took me 14 years to finish my bachelor's degree. That was a long time. But in the back of my mind, my dream was go ahead and just take one class. Like I gotta get closer and closer. If I get an associate's degree, I don't have to work this crappy job. If I get a bachelor's degree, I don't have to work that job. Like everything is a domino effect. If you don't have a good job, you're not gonna have good credit. You're not gonna have good credit. You can't have a good, decent car. Like everything relied on me making money, and I didn't wanna be homeless. Being homeless so many times puts a fear in you, and you're like, I will not be homeless. I won't do it. And it was always something that he would bring up. If you don't do your job right, I'm gonna fire your ass and you're going back to the homeless shelter. Like every time, and I'm just like, I can't emotionally deal with this. Like this can't be right. And he knew a lot of influential people in power too. He still knows a lot of influential people in power. But for the likes of me, I can't understand why so many state representatives, why so many Congress people walked in and out of the restaurant that I worked at. Why even the former mayor, Alvin Brown, I don't know how all these people walked in and out of the restaurant and didn't stop and ask me a question. Because for me, having my human services background, I'd be asking questions. That young woman, why is she covered up? How long she's been like that? Are they family? Are they related? Like I'd start asking questions. But no, like nobody saw how drastic I started to change overnight. Nope, not State Representative Corrine Brown, who frequently came into the restaurant getting food and chicken wings. I waited on that lady so many times serving her chicken wings. I know she likes extra ranch, and I never charged her to. Hosendorf, let's see, Katrina Brown, all these people, all of these, the Jerome Brown sauce scandal. If you're from Jacksonville, you know exactly what I'm talking about. My name was on documents for an LLC that I never even started. So I'm thinking, not only has my information been used, not only is there fraud, but there's people who are turning a blind eye and looking the other way. I can't report anything that happened to me to the EEOC because he knows the freaking mayor. Like he was feeding half of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to eat food. So I'm like, now you know the cops too? Like I just felt so trapped that I really did believe what that soldier told me, that I'm gonna die here because nobody's ever gonna believe me. It was like David and Goliath. I just wanted to get out. And I met this friend of mine. As a matter of fact, even before that, the part that I'm not telling you, I forgot for a moment because I have narcolepsy and it's hard for me because I'm jet lagged. I was trying to get out and I got pregnant from my boss. And, you know, my son's a product of rape after everything that happened. And I got pregnant from him. And I remember him telling me, you can't tell anybody. You're just my worker. You're just my employee. Like, this is not possible. You got to have an abortion. And I'm thinking, what? I just lost 2 kids. You want me to have an abortion? You have to have an abortion. If you have one, I'll give you a cruise. And don't tell anybody that you're pregnant. And I couldn't do that. That wasn't something that I could do. And I didn't have an abortion. I actually had my son. And for the first 2 years of his life, I wasn't able to tell anybody about my son. I wasn't able to tell him, you know, oh, this is the father for it. I wasn't able to say anything. And I met the person that I'm with now, I'm a lesbian. I met a woman that I'm with now. She was just my friend. And she was like, look, you're going through something. This isn't right. No man should treat you like that. Your employer shouldn't do anything like that. Like, there's so many crimes and there's so much illegal stuff that I'm hearing. You need to get out of that situation. And in April 2017, I plotted my escape. I packed all my stuff up and I gave myself 30 days. I started moving stuff into storage. And with my guidance of my friend that I'm with now, my sweetheart, she told me to go back to the Hubbard House like my mom did and to get counseling, outpatient services. And they helped me create a safety plan. So I got counseling services, I created a safety plan, and I left with my son. And I was berated by so many text messages the day that I left. I mean, so many threatening emails. I've kept all of them from, oh, baby, if it's your money, you know I owe you more than $25,000. I'll give your money back. You don't need to worry about anything. Just come home to me. Oh, I love you. Oh, you're crazy. Just like so many back and forth messages. You know, I got my own apartment. He found out where I lived at. He opened a restaurant like within walking distance from where I lived. Just complete stalking, and I just felt like I couldn't get out of my situation. Even now, I still feel like I'm stuck in the situation that I'm in. And if it wasn't for, you know, Robin letting me know that there's more to life than just working at a restaurant and being treated like this. You know, no one should force labor you. No one should make you feel like less than the person. And even if you have a child, don't stay for your child. Leave for the sake of your child. And that's what I did. And, you know, we're fighting for custody right now. So I'm fighting. I haven't seen my son since April.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of setbacks, a lot of problems you've had.
A lot of setbacks, a lot of problems.
Who do you blame for all these?
You know, I know when I say it, people get upset and they don't want me to say it. But, you know, I do blame myself for not having boundaries. You know, I don't want to break my mom's heart and say it like that, but, you know, in a way I fault my mom for not teaching me how to have boundaries with people, how to say no, even when outside you want to say yes because it's polite. But if your heart is screaming no, say it. You know, I blame, you know, the men who've touched me, who've pushed me more into the direction that I'm in now. You know, like, they couldn't control their fleshy desires, so they decided to touch a child. Like, I'm the result of what happens when you grow up from trauma. I've thought about hard drugs. You know, I've thought about strip club life. I've thought about so many things. Right now, I work sometimes and I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning doing shift work, doing stocking coolers, cleaning toilets. Why? Because I want to teach my kids that it's not just, there's other ways to make money. There's hard ways to make money. I braid hair, like whatever I can do to be independent. I work extra hard so that I can take that blame off of me. You know, like, I feel like the adults in my life failed me. The men who were supposed to protect me failed me. My family, like, I feel like everyone's failed me, but I don't like to blame people. So I just put it back on myself.
Yeah, but you could also blame your parents.
Yes.
Who didn't teach you to stand up for yourself, perhaps, or to make decisions.
That's pretty much it. Is like, you want to be nice, but you can't worry about being nice. You have to worry about what's being right. Like, to make those good decisions. Don't let anybody touch you in your bathing suit areas. Someone touches you, tell your parents. But then it's the parent's responsibility when you tell your parent, like I told my mom, for her to look into it and believe it. Don't be so happy that you got a man that you ignore your kids. That's the problem with a lot of people in our community and people I see on the show. I hear their parents failed them. Still nervous.
That's the common thread.
It's the common thread. It's the correlation. Like, right now, my kids are growing up, and I love it. Like, I see my daughter playing baseball. I see the other baseball parents or, you know, the different sports that we go to, our little small town community. And I love it. I'm able to be mom. I'm not stuck in the drive-through window. I'm like, you know, I have a choice every day when I get up. I can either do something to make me forget about my childhood and my life, or I can own it. I can look it in the face and tell it to F off, that I'm bigger than that. I'm bigger than that. I don't let people dictate my life. Yes, I'm a lesbian. That's who I am. And I'm sure if you hear my story, some people are like, girl, I'd be running the other way too.
That's right.
But in that I found my faith. I've been able to come back to God in my own way of faith. And I can say I got friends from all backgrounds. I got friends who are felons. I got friends who, you know, have corporate jobs. I have friends who are politicians. I have friends who've done meth. I'm all like, the main message is just, we're all hurting. Like, I'm hurting. I have to smile so that I don't cry. I have to keep on going. And I want to make a change one day. I want to start a nonprofit to help girls like me, people who get overlooked, who walk down the bus at the bus stop and people splash water on you with your cars. Like, I hate that shit. I hate when it rains. But I know that God has a plan for me. I know that God has an assignment for me to be able to speak up. And I know this story. I was nervous, Mark. I was nervous to share this story. I was scared. I was ashamed, so many feelings. And now I feel a big relief off my chest.
That's great. Too, let me ask you one last question. What would you say is the most important thing you've learned in all of this?
I'm going to write a book about that because it's not even enough time. Mark is like, girl, your life.
In one sentence.
The most important, never judge a book by its cover. Might be the best book you've ever read.
That's great.
That's going to be on my book, Mark. And my makeup's not too bad.
No, you did good.
Thank you.
All right, Tia, thank you so much for sharing this.
Okay,
That's a lot.
I didn't want to break down and cry, but that's really what I'm facing right now.
You feel better?
I feel a lot better.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.